Well, I didn't hear our intro music, so I'm not sure what's happening there. So welcome to MindShifters Radio with Dr. Michael Ryce. Our call-in number is 646-200-4169. We would love to hear your comments and your questions. Looks like Dr. Tim is already with us. Welcome, Michael, to the show. Michael, are you there?
Thank you, sweetie. I'm not sure what happened to our intro. It just kind of disappeared. We got welcomed. But anyway, we're delighted to be here. We've got another awesome opportunity to create support for the healing of ourselves and every mind, heart, and being on planet Earth via the ancient Aramaic tools of forgiveness. And the focus of our show, the focus of our work together, is to bring these tools forward and make them available to every mind, heart, and being on the planet so that we can get to the point where it's safe for human life to show up. That is, for this awesome active presence of love that you and I are designed to be, to come into full experience and full expression on the planet. So that's what we're here to do. That's what we're here to create. And we invite you to be part of that process. If you're not sure what that word forgive means, and if you've been taught by our Greek philosophically oriented culture that forgiveness means I let somebody else off the hook for what's happening inside of me, then you've been conned. You haven't been told the truth. And therefore, if you've engaged in that form of so-called forgiveness, you've found that you've gotten to live the title of my book. You've got to say to yourself more than once, why is this happening to me again? Or perhaps, why are they doing this to me again? And the reason for that is that the word forgive has nothing whatsoever to do with letting other people off the hook for what's happening inside of you. It's how you let go of what's going on inside of you. And the process of forgiveness shows you exactly how to access the parts of your mind that you, if you live in the traditional world, and me and our whole culture have hidden from us, a part that we've dissociated from. And what the ancient Aramaic idea of forgiveness does is it puts you back in touch with the dissociated part of your mind. How can you tell if there's a dissociated part of your mind that's in need of healing? Well, when you get to the Aramaic understanding, it's really very simple. If you're in some form of pain or some form of upset, and the words that come out of your mouth are about somebody else, then guaranteed you are dissociated from a part of your own mind. And that part of your own mind is the part that will keep coming back and biting you in the butt. So we're here to show you how to get in touch with that part of your mind, how to move through that part of your mind, how to truly, truly forgive, which means change the content of your mind, not let somebody else off the hook because that particular painful content is there inside of you. And so we invite you to engage in the process, engage in forgiveness. If you're not sure about how to do that, then we suggest that you go to our website. We do have our new website up. Thank you to everybody who's been participating in that, and Jeanie, especially you, and especially Danielle and Marie-Jose and Susan for all the work that's been done to get the website up and operating. It's absolutely awesome. It's coming together. And so if you go to our website, www.whyagain.org, our .com site is still operating, but it's going to be being phased out as we get everything active in our whyagain.org site. And the whyagain.org site will give you the tools of the ancient Aramaic forgiveness. If you go to the site, and in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see right at the very top in the left corner, start here. If you click that link, that will take you to exactly how the forgiveness process works from the ancient Aramaic. So we invite you to join us, join our conversation. If you're on a station that doesn't show up in our control panel, then we invite you to tap in. Our calling number is 646-200-4169. Call into the show. We would love to hear your questions. Let's say a quick hello to Dr. Tim. How do you be, sir?
Well, I'm doing better than yesterday. Still in the healing crisis, but had a night of a day yesterday where I did more StillPoint breathing than I ever have in a day. And then last night after the MindShifters group, when I got home, I breathed a little bit more, and then literally soaked through 2 sets of clothes in the middle of the night, and got up this morning and went and saw somebody and had her do some cranial-sacral therapy on me, and so I'm able to breathe about 80% of a full breath, and so decidedly better. Still on the mend.
Moving in the right direction.
Yep. And I thought I would really like to say to people like Julie from Ashland, Oregon, and Natalie and Susan G., that the example they gave us during the intensive, where they were going through drama and trauma about the pain they were feeling or the spasming muscles, really served me well in these past few days, where it was painful to breathe or move, and I knew I just needed to stay with it and do the StillPoint breathing and ask Ruka for help and releasing what needed to be released, and it was I think it really served me well in these past few days that those people were willing to stay with it long enough to get good results and see the StillPoint breathing sessions be so productive.
It certainly is fabulous to have the tools, and rather than, I lay around, I take some pills and hope the pain will go away.
Yep. Yeah, I was very tempted to take some ibuprofen or go to the emergency room, and if I hadn't been living in a way that is basically healthy, and if I hadn't been able to be as productive in my exercising over the past 4 or 5 months, I would have thought I was having a heart attack. If I can't breathe and my whole chest hurts, and it's the kind of thing that would normally take somebody into the emergency room where they stick us full of needles and tubes, but I just had the knowing that that's not what this is.
Right.
So it's very, very rewarding to be able to stay with it and use the tools and come out on the other side.
Well, after that kind of a spill, 80% breath back, and I've never heard of a set of handlebars breaking off in your hands in a bicycle before. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was a poor design. I thought by the time I got back to the bike shop they would say, "Oh yeah, this is badly designed. We've seen this a lot." And they said, "Nope, never seen it before." So then I went back to pick up the bike, and somebody said, "Yeah, we've never seen this happen before." But come to think of it, that was the only year they made these. So maybe some other people had that happen. But
I'm just thankful that you weren't going downhill and standing, something like that when that happened. I'm thankful you were going uphill slowly.
Yeah, there were a lot of good things about it. I was wearing a helmet. I went off to the right instead of the left into traffic, and it was good. So
definitely blessed. If it had to happen, that was certainly the ideal circumstance for it. So we see all good coming out of it.
Yep.
So how did the support group go last night?
Well, because of my disorientation and difficulty breathing and pain, and I didn't take the DVD with me, but we listened to. I threw it open to the group, and what would they want to do? They had the choice of any of the other DVDs or something else, discussion or whatever. And somebody said, "Well, let's listen to that Way of Mastery Chapter 3 on forgiveness." So we did that, and the whole hour that was going on, I was working on my back and my chest with the Theracane and pushing on knots and breathing. And then after that, we had a brief discussion, and then somebody did a worksheet on a difficulty he had because his fiancée wanted to spend some money. And it was very, very useful because we had people in the group, some of them were fairly new. There were 8 people all told. And some of them were fairly new that wanted to jump to conclusions and speculations about what this really meant. And we just stayed on task and just kept bringing it back to the worksheet. And he was able to get in touch with, this gentleman is in his 50s, and he was able to get in touch with a time when he was maybe 16 or 17 years old, and his parents were arguing, and he went in to try and tell him to calm down or resolve it a different way. And they both said to him simultaneously, "Shut the blank up and get out of here." So he had this huge energy block around whatever you want to call it, people who are married, having conflict, resolving difficulties. He's not even sure what they were arguing about at that time, but his response to his fiancée wanting to spend some money, his punishment thought was, I'm just going to call off the wedding. And he knew that's crazy because he's old enough, he's been around enough, and he knows this woman is a very lovely woman, and their interaction is fulfilling his life in ways that he never would have imagined. So it's not he wants to run away from the relationship, but without something like these tools, he might have. So it was very powerful.
Did he have the inclination to use the phrase that his parents used to him at 16? Shut the blank up?
Well, he might have. He didn't talk about that. He did say that, and he got a lot of emotion going when we asked him to just tune into your punishment thought. And he said, well, the more I sit with this, the more I just want to say I'm just going to call off the effing wedding. So it was very productive. Sorry, what'd you say?
I was just saying it's amazing how powerful it is to have that power person dynamic understanding, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and to be able to grab a hold of it knowing that anything that I have going on inside of me is about me and use the tools on me rather than yelling at somebody else or expecting them to change. It's just amazing how it makes life it's a whole different game. It's a whole different game.
And it's such a huge piece of learning. Our culture is so focused on you made me, and I want to look at you and talk about you when I'm in pain with never a thought about me and the fact that I've been there every time it's happened to me, and maybe it's got something to do with me. It's just amazing. And such a huge piece of learning to bring yourself back from that. You made me angry, you made me sad, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm afraid. I think I need to go inside and forgive. I think I need to go inside and remove this because I realize the reason I'm experiencing it is because it's inside of me. It's like, it's so just awesomely different than what the whole culture teaches.
And it seems impossible that it's that simple and that powerful. Especially after I've been conditioned for 40 years in a different direction. But it's amazingly powerful.
For sure. For sure. Well, let's check in and see if we have any callers. Jeanie, anything happening in the chat room or any callers?
We do have 2 callers.
Oh, cool. Let's go for it.
First one is area code 702. You're on the air.
Well, hello there, Jeanie and Michael. Joanne at Heartland.
How are you, lady?
Say it again.
I say, how are you?
Oh, I'm wonderful. It's a great day.
Did you get your smoothie?
I did. It's fabulous. I've already had a second drink of it. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah. So, I missed Mary Lou and I were in the same place, and her phone was on. when she moved over, I lost a few seconds there. So you were asking someone to call in, and I missed the name. Who you were inviting someone to call, so I just wanted to be sure that I called in, first of all.
Well, we're glad you called in, and actually we hadn't invited anybody to call in, but we're glad you did. What's on your mind?
A pause there. So anyway, I'll just share a brief experience with my Heartland friends that are around wherever they may be at this moment in time. I had an experience yesterday that reminds me of the adage, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So
right.
I've been biting on this elephant for years, and it apparently is bigger than what I thought it was, and or that I could see. And so yesterday morning I woke up early as usual, but I had the sense of kind of restlessness because I've been trying to figure out how I could transport some product home cost-effectively and safely, without damage and so forth and so on. And so I looked at it from a number of different angles, not satisfied with any of them, and partially because of the amount of money that I spent that was not a great amount of money, but out of what I had to spend, it was. So finally, yesterday, I realized that underneath all of this issue about transporting and was all about not enough money was what it was that I had spent, that it was allocated for something else and so forth and so on. Well, that's the issue that I've been biting on the elephant for years, and it had to do with these Asiaga mushrooms. So I thought, and the shiitake. You know what? It reminded me of this story about the Hebrew children fearing that they wouldn't have enough for the next day and grabbing more than enough manna for one day, even though they had been forewarned that everything you take beyond your need for the moment will be wasted. And so in that remembrance, I thought, let me just let go of this, and I'm going to prepare these mushrooms here today. I won't even have to figure out how to take them home. And so
the soup was awesome.
Thank you. So I enjoyed it myself. And I want you to know that in the process of, first of all, it was an experience and an adventure in preparing these. I had gone through the process of drying them outdoors 2 different days, and all of this. That was a new experience for me, which I enjoyed. I'm learning something, and I will be doing it when I get home. But in addition to that, there was a vegetable stock that had to be made in order to make the shiitake mushroom soup that I made. So all of that wonderful stock was left, and this morning I reconstituted that, and that became the breakfast in a warm smoothie. So nothing wasted there, insights observed, taken, and processed. So I'm happy to say all is well.
Well, that's fabulous. It sounds like a nice piece of learning.
Yes, it is. So thank you. And thank you for
we join you in being fully, totally, completely, 100% abundant.
Thank you.
And notice that you're getting people who are sending you people to help with working with worksheets. So you're obviously gathering a reputation, and who knows? That may become your future livelihood.
Well, that could be. I'm available.
It could be.
So, yes, I am. Thank you very much. And if you're out there, Richard, thank you. He's the one that referred this person coming all the way from the other side of the country, but it doesn't matter where. It's all one big family, and I'm available. Thank you.
Yes, and right as we speak, Suzanne is working on setting up the pages for the individual facilitators and teachers. So probably, I'm not sure, maybe Jeanie will know more about the time frame, but probably within a very short period of time, you will have your own page where you'll be able to talk about exactly what you're doing and what you're charging for what you do and how it's all going to work for you. So you absolutely have our support.
I look forward to it. Thank you.
All right, blessings. Take care.
And one other comment, Michael.
Oh, yes.
I received a call, I think it was last week, from Connie Ray, and she asked me to express her, to say hello to you guys, and she thinks about you and misses you. She was actually in Idaho, Idaho and Eastern Washington. So anyway, she sends her regards to you and Jeanie and Heartland.
Cool. Fabulous.
Okay.
All right.
Awesome.
Very good. Well, thanks for your call.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we have callers coming in like out of the woodwork today. We've got 4 people waiting, so this is awesome. Yeah. Next caller is area code 517. You're on the air.
Hello, 517. You are on the air.
That's me. Can you hear me?
Hi.
Well, hey,
yeah.
Lee, how are you?
I'm doing great. Now, I was listening to the program
in your world.
Well, there's a lot happening in my world. I actually, what I wanted to call and I want to acknowledge, I was on the call on Tuesday when Julio spoke and Michael C. came on and Magda come on, and I was just so moved by everyone's sharing that I tried to get in on the call, but we ran out of time. So I first wanted to acknowledge Julie for all the work she's doing and shifting, and just sounds so much clarity coming in through her voice. So I wanted to acknowledge her and Julio for everything that he's gone through. What an amazing process. That was pretty incredible to hear, and just to, again, listen to his voice and the tones of the sounds of his voice and so forth. And then Michael C., being willing again to just open himself up and say, look, this is what I'm dealing with. I felt very moved by that and still am being moved by it and motivated, as I have been quite often with Michael. And I just want him to know that if he's not on the call, I just want him to make sure that he knows. I was going to call him, but I thought, well, I do want to acknowledge it on the air because, he's reaching out and stepping out. And what I really got, and with Magda coming on, and just her courage of being willing to, step into such a deep, deep level fear of the height challenge that she had. So those are the main things I wanted to mention as far as acknowledgement. When Michael C. was talking, I realized I had Saturday I taught a workshop. It's called Experiencing Pure Joy by Embracing Your Inner Child, and it's the foundational work, obviously, for the work that you do, Michael, and I've learned it pretty much all from you and my own experience, obviously. But in this workshop, I had an experience that really shifted in me, and it had already started happening over the intensive for 2 weeks. I was there for the 3 weeks I was there, and I started really feeling different about this process of how we go through this experience where the veils are pulled across, and then we, as a very young child, between 1 and 3, or somewhere between conception and 3, the veils are pulled across, and we don't feel the same connection to our source. And I tell that as part of my inner child workshop because it happens to be a way for people to connect with that pain and that feeling of abandonment. And I've been pretty familiar with it for quite a long time. But something happened where I realized that piece of feeling abandoned and the habit of birthing and dying, and I did a talk the week before, as you know, is it a chronic habit, or do we have to suffer and be in pain all the time? And I in the talk, I got a lot clearer on that piece as well, and it just feels so different about that it is just a habit. I mean, we don't have to suffer in pain. I know this sounds so, wow, what a revelation. But it's just so different when it starts to me. Yeah, it's huge. And so I had this on Saturday, and it was just a really fun, exciting workshop. People get great results and a lot of healing. I introduced, because it wasn't even on the format of what I was going to do, but people were asking certain questions, so I just went with it, and I introduced Rahman Kuba, and I don't normally talk a lot about either, and Ruka Takucha, but in this workshop I spent almost an hour on it, and the people just loved it, and it's such an integrated piece. Well, what happened for me is I knew something was changing, because when I was teaching about this whole idea that we come into a body and then we have to kill the body, and it was just so ridiculous to me, and it was genuinely ridiculous. It was so deep inside of me that I just felt so different with it. I went, wow, I didn't have time to really go wow while I was there. It was afterwards that I was able to, as I'm sure you know, it started really sinking in. Well, I woke up Sunday morning and I felt great. I started feeling a little bit off Saturday night, late, tired. I figured I was just tired. Got up Sunday morning, and your phrase about where did the Mack truck come, did somebody get a license plate on that Mack truck that runs from my bedroom? I felt horrible. I had dizziness.
Good for you.
Yeah, and I'm moving on the other side of it, and what really stimulated my call in is to acknowledge Dr. Tim, because when he was going through that, I don't know if dizziness was a part of it, but imagine if it was short of air, and being able to have difficulty breathing in the heart and so forth, that would be very likely. But in this process that I went through, there was no reason, quote, that I should be feeling the way I felt. And other than just, all I could come up with is, God, I must be just going through a major healing because I just broke through some major stuff, and okay, cool. Well, then it just seemed to get more. It intensified. Like Dr. Tim, I did more breathing in those 3 days, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, than I've done other than at the intensives, by myself, just breathing for like 2 hours at a time, just constant, and just nothing seemed to really, quote, happen, but I had to be down. I couldn't be up and run around. I got almost nothing done in the world as far as the world perceives, and about my world. And what I'd love to hear is any kind of input you've got on this. And also the symptoms were very specific. It was dizzy, neck pain in the back of my head, just like what some people have described as a migraine, my vision being blurry, and, just a feeling of not being able to get up and move around very much, where I might have been able to link it up with different symptoms. I wanted to give one other piece. I had fallen off my deck. I have a rail around my deck that's about 4 feet off the ground. Remember last year or 2 years ago when I fell off?
Right.
And I had fallen flat on my back on the ground, and really I was blessed to not have damaged something, because it's where you can die from that height, and there's a lot of stuff that could happen, obviously not for me in that moment. But I just did my work with it, with a lot of healing, and I just felt prompted to go to my chiropractor, and he was doing some muscle testing on me, and he says, you're kind of blown out there. He says, okay, now look up to the right, look up to the left, look at the corner. He said, do all this vision stuff, and I did, and he said, okay. And he just spontaneously, I never said anything about this I never even thought about it. He said, spontaneously, what way were you looking when you fell? So when I fell, when, Doc? What are you talking about? I didn't fall. And he says, no, when you fell a couple years ago. I'm like, oh, you mean off the deck? He goes, yeah. I said, I was looking like this. And he said, well, you've got an imprint that's got your body off, and here, he did some adjusting and so forth, and it was very helpful. And then he went to test it again to validate the test was solid, and it went back out again. And he said he'd never seen that before. And so he did it again and corrected it. And as soon as he told me intuitively that what about this fall, it was the same feeling I had when I got up from the ground and sat in the chair, and I was that way for a day or two. I was, very discombobulated and couldn't really grasp everything. And I also have a feeling it was sensing with that. What I really wanted to share with this, and I'd love any input as well, once I'd be quiet, but I just want to get it out, is that I felt like I had raised my vitality so much during the intensive, and since I've been back, I just continued the process and doing a lot of healing work and been feeling awesome and just everything really clicking. And this experience, it feels like I had raised the vitality up, and I didn't even know I had actually had that trauma where I had locked anything in the tissue. And because I felt pretty conscious in the experience. So it's just for all of us to, yeah, go ahead. Thank you.
When you think about yourself as an energy system, for instance, a fall like that, even if you're conscious, the physical energy impact that gets locked into tissue, if we don't move it out immediately, what happens in that day or two, one of the games of this whole structure is to maintain homeostasis. I got to get back to balance. So if I've had all this physically impacted energy go into the system, I'm going to do the best I can to come back to homeostasis and balance that so I can function, because my number one thing is to function. And then as you hit that new level of vitality, the system says, okay, now, in order to hit homeostasis, we had to adjust this and this and this, and, you went through, as you said, a day or two where I think that's an official medical term, isn't it, discombobulated? where everything is off and I can't see properly and I can't think properly, and that's the system adjusting itself. If you imagine the snake moving, imagine the whole system is kind of moving to try to bring itself back to function, and it's going to do the best it can for the energy it can't process to put it in a place where it says, all right, awaiting future attention, awaiting future vitality to process this out. And when you hit that new level of vitality, and for those who are perhaps new to the show, when Rex said how terrible he was feeling, and I said, hooray, good for you. The reason for that is because I know that when you hit a new level of vitality, the system says, okay, all those energies that were awaiting future attention and awaiting future vitality to process out, here I am. And now I'm going to go right back to exactly the symptoms. The energy on the way out looks exactly the way it did on the way in, physically, mentally, and emotionally. And if you were pretty conscious mentally and emotionally, then there probably wasn't a lot of impact from that regard. But it sounds like the physical energy locked in, and that's why your chiropractor said, well, I've never seen that process, I've never seen that come back, because there was still a lot of literal impacted energy that had been punched into the system that the system was holding in places where it didn't belong but had minimal impact. And so now I can open up, and probably, one of the biggest things that's missing in our culture is people live in this go, got to get it done. I've got goals to achieve, don't you know? Don't make me take time to lay down and breathe and take care of myself. And if you don't give yourself that space, then the structure will make you lay down. And it sounds like it did, and that's absolutely right on track.
Well, that's a great assessment of that. I appreciate it. Would you comment on this piece that I was sharing about the abandonment and that period of time where we felt abandoned? I know you can't be abandoned by what you are. I mean, it's absurd, and I even share that. But that experience as a child, when we transfer that knowingness and that feeling of bliss and oneness, and we start to transfer it to the world. And there's a lot around that and a lot of information. But what I felt when Michael was talking, Michael C., the other day on Tuesday, is that I had all this sadness welling up, and it was like, oh, I need to call in, I need to talk, I need to share this. And then it was like, no, I'd be embarrassed because I wanted to cry, And then I went, okay.
So Rex, who taught you that as a man it was unsafe and you should be embarrassed to cry?
That'd be my dad. That'd be my number one power person, no question about it.
Yeah. So I'd support you in letting go of that and know that if tears are there, they're absolutely appropriate and on track, and it's time for us as men to be able to be with that when it happens. We happen to come from a half of the population of the planet that has been so stuffed down and locked in that literally, statistically, the average man on planet Earth dies 10 years earlier than his partner does, than the woman does. And I'd offer the reason is because we've been taught to take these energies that we really need to process and deal with, and And when tears are there, to be with the tears, and when you need to breathe, to process through those things. And we've been taught that you're not allowed to do that. You got money to make. You got work to do. You got a battle to fight, don't you know? And
exactly.
So the point, you know, if you remember back in the codependence workshop, I described how in relationship to the power person, we develop an image of self that's totally false based on the messages we got from our power person, or that we made up based on our relationship and interaction with our power person. We made up a whole self that wasn't. And the abandonment that takes place is when we give up our relationship with our true being to take on that secondary or false identity. And it's the forgiving, the removing of that false identity that becomes key in the process of healing. And it is one of the most, in my experience, and I've only seen a few people get to the level of aliveness and vitality where they can go back through that, it is one of the deepest, most painful places that one can go. The moment at which one gave up the direct experience of their being as this awesome, active presence of love to function as a self that was based in the power person dynamics and the giving up of our human lives. And my experience over the years is that the average person in this culture is dead by the age of 4. The true self has been abandoned. It's been lost. Awareness of it has been given up, and we've fallen out of that identity into identifying with the self that is a resident image in the brain based on messages from the power person. And that's the self. When we fall into identification with that, that's the self that Yeshua said, in order for you to live, you've got to die. The false self has got to go.
Well, Michael, thank you so much for all that information. It was very helpful. And as you were talking, a fair amount was being resonated. And one of the things that I am acknowledging and feeling is it has been something I've been teaching for years, you know, in the inner child process. And all of a sudden something shifted in me. I shifted through the work at the intensive and since, and obviously before, that shift came in was like, oh, this was actually a decision I made. And
yep.
I didn't have to make it, and I can change it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got that, I was like, oh, this body really, really doesn't have to lay down. It doesn't. And you know, one of the things
and
that's
the
been
decision,
it's a decision.
The decision is spontaneous and genetically reinforced because it's been going on for so long in our bloodline. And what we need to do is replace the decision with a new choice.
Yeah.
We need to move out of being decision-making beings into choice-based beings.
Absolutely. Well, that resonating deep, deep level of sadness and grief, prior I've touched into it, but it's been mostly projected on what I would call God or the source. And I knew intellectually that was erroneous, but it still was the sensing and the feeling. Well, this time it was just a realization that it was like, oh, I really did this. I really chose this, or decided it. Yes, and I can choose to do this differently, just like the Course says.
Yes.
So
nice work, friend.
Thank you, and I love all your support. And this part about the tears, how it can be in a reverse effect. It will affect some men that they won't cry at all. Well, with me, it had so much of an impact that I fought it so much that I would cry so easy, and then I had, quote, no control over it. Well, finally, as you were talking, the other thing that resonated, I got clear on, is that, well, this was a piece that I had made wrong, and so that it was just held in suspension inside me, and I was building my consciousness and vitality and awareness up, and it was always trying to surface in this piece saying that even though I had gone through that and worked that material, quote, just, again, another level of that that it's okay to actually just cry.
Cool.
Well, sir. Okay to not cry. Thank you.
Absolutely. We got our support. We appreciate you.
And you got lots of calls, so I'll let you go back to them. So God bless everybody.
Okay.
Thanks.
Blessings. Okay, lots of love. Jeanie, you've got another caller?
Yes, we actually have 3 more callers, but we have a conversation in the chat room I want to address first. And there is a person in the chat room, their first question, and let me kind of go through this first, and then you can address what you feel is most significant. They started out asking if someone doesn't know Jesus, can they be saved? And so then I wrote back and I explained that the Creator, it says that we're created in His image and that the Scripture says God is love, so that means we are love. Had them go through and describe the newborn and that we need to get back to being connected, that as we grow up, that somewhere along the age of 4, that we begin to disconnect and we begin to develop a false self. And they ask, what happens when we disconnect from love? And then I described that, when has he ever done anything that he regrets, and that it's usually in fear, shame, resentment, anger, those kind of things, and that becomes our disease. And then he wrote back and said, my partner is too pissed to love me right now. And we've just found out that I have a bipolar disorder. So I started explaining that bipolar is having 2 goals that are pulling in 2 directions, and to cancel the goals, and that the partner can only be pissed off because they have pissed off in them, and that not to buy in that it's his fault or to blame or whatever. And so then he's saying, well, what do I do? Do I just move on? And so then I said to go back to health, we have to remove those energies. So anyway, somewhere along all of that discussion, can you kind of address that? His name's Jerry.
Well, Jerry, my highest thought would be that you jump on whyagain.org, hit the button up in the upper left-hand corner that says Start Here, download the worksheet. There's some sample radio shows to guide you through the worksheet and a full set of instructions there. Start working with the forgiveness process. One of the things that happens is that we tend to create relationships out of what I like to call matching bags of garbage. And a matching bags of garbage relationship is one where if you have the fear, I have the anger. If I have the anger, you have the fear. And we will tend to trigger that in each other. And once we recognize that we're triggering that sort of thing in each other, then we have the opportunity to start to change that dynamic inside of us. So rather than focusing on whatever her problem is, whatever the challenge is that's making it where you're trying to either blame her or make it your fault, that you let go of the whole idea of blame and you recognize, okay, so here we have a matching bag of garbage. That's great. She's got some anger. I've got some fear. So instead of the punishment aspect coming in, well, I'm just going to move on, how about if I just open up the space to open my heart and heal my fear and the punishment, and I just about bet, just as a wild guess, that your power person, that was the person who had more power over your life than you did at some point, whenever you did what they didn't like, they went into abandonment of some sort. We're going to send you off to your room, or we're going to threaten to throw you out of our lives or out of our family, what have you. And so to start to forgive, apply forgiveness to that, not to your partner for being angry. That's your partner's work. And what you'll tend to find is, as you start to work through those energies in yourself, that your partner will tend to start to drop that dynamic and change their internal process. So perhaps an invitation, and invite your partner to join in. Hey, I just learned something. We've got a matching bag of garbage. And so how about if we work in acquiring some of Yeshua's actual tools? And this would be to me, this would be the real getting to know Yeshua, is that you have the tools with which to work through what takes you out of your true human expression, which is this awesome active presence of love that you were designed to be. So that would be my input for you. That's where I'd suggest you go.
And let me add something else, too. He just wrote in and he said that he had lived in fear of this for a long time, being tossed to a curb, and that she wouldn't join in. So I said, well, then the first part to look at and for his work is on the fear, because the fear that he holds is going to create his life. And she doesn't necessarily have to join in. I mean, it would be nice if she would, but it's kind of like I use the example of playing tug of rope, that if, you're pulling back and forth on the rope, if you drop your end of it, it changes her game whether she wants it to or not. And so several things will happen. Either, there's 4 things that Michael says happens when you start doing your work and cleaning up your part. So in your case, it's your fear, Jerry. So when you start working on that and cleaning it up, she'll either really see the change and like what you're doing and then want to join in. That's number 1. Or she'll say, it looks good on you, you keep doing it, and I don't want it, and that's okay. I'll support you, but, just you keep doing it, and that's okay too. Third one is she'll get even more pissed because now you're not controllable, and so she'll crank up the heat to try to get you back the way you were. Or the 4th thing is there'll be no resonance and you'll part. The thing about parting, and, there may come a time at some place where you say, I'm going to go play in a different ball game. But if you don't work on your fear first, you're just going to create the same relationship with a different face. And so working on your part of it to do something different is going to be what your work is about. And you said she hates religion. This really isn't religion. Religion is a dogma made up by men, but it is spiritual because we are spiritual beings.
And it's the tool. It's the how-to. So rather than introducing some religious ideas, and it's been actually very skillfully set up that men reject what was taught by Yeshua because they made of him a religious figure. If you go to the original Aramaic, what you find is not a religious teaching or a religious figure. You find a set of tools for how to heal your life. Here's how it works. Do your work, and life gets cleaned up. Don't do your work, and life gets crazier. That would be my take.
And we're here Monday through Friday, so give the worksheets, go to the website and download those and check that out, and then give us a call back. We're here again tomorrow at the same time, and if we can help support you, then we'll be glad to do so. And
there are 5 different radio shows where we walk somebody, so there's a full set of instructions, actually 5 different sets of instructions to walk you through the worksheet process. So put it to work and watch what happens. Things will change.
Yeah, and as far as the bipolar goes, it's the forgiveness worksheet that you'll be checking out and looking at and working through. It helps you to cancel goals. And so when you have goals, I want to go this way and do this, I want to go that way, do that, and you're pulled in different directions, that's the bipolar. So when you learn to cancel the goals, you can get back in balance on that. So that's not something that can't be dealt with. So, let go of the fear of that one as well. And then we do have 3 more callers.
All right, well, let's tap in with a caller.
All right. Our next caller is area code 352. You're on the air.
Hello, this is Mary Lou from Heartland.
Hi, Mary Lou.
Mary Lou from Heartland.
So I was really moved by yesterday's talk on denial and how we can take clues for what we're disassociated with. And the quote that I pulled from yesterday's is, you can't forgive what you can't access. And I'd like to have more information about that. I know that there are things that I'd like to forgive, and I know it's an issue for me, and at the same time I don't seem to be able to have that to come up, to stare me in the face, and so I'm in ES going, okay, I'm hungry. I love that smoothie, and that's not enough. And so I'm like, okay, what's the drug that I'm using to disassociate from this? So I thought I would just call and have a conversation instead of rummaging around the kitchen.
Okay, so my first order of business would be to ask the question, are you breathing?
I am now, thank you.
Okay, good. So that's always the first order of business. And when the breath isn't enough to hold back what we don't want to deal with, when holding the breath won't do it, that's when we go looking for some sort of a substance to shut things down with. And so when I say you can't heal what you can't get in touch with, you can't access, that doesn't mean that you have to have cognitive awareness of everything that goes on. For instance, what Rex was sharing with us, a thing where he fell a significant height on his back 2 years ago, impacts a lot of energy. And yes, he had the memory of that, but also you don't have to, know every little piece and every little detail, but you have to get to a level of vitality where you can access what needs to move. So it's sometimes a cognitive process, but not necessarily cognitive that we're looking for.
Okay.
And the whole idea of the worksheet is that whenever you look at what to your mind appears to be the source of the challenge, I feel this way when I think about Charlie. Then I want to look at now, when I think about Charlie, I think about 1,000 other people, I don't have these feelings. I think about Charlie, there's a reason why I feel this way when I think about Charlie. And that is that there's a specific goal that I hold for Charlie that Charlie is not achieving for me. And when I cancel that goal, that's going to be the key way into that dissociated part of my mind that's going to give me access, though not necessarily cognitive access, energetic access to whatever it is that I need to heal. Does that make sense?
Okay, so what I heard you say is that I would, in canceling the goal, I had this specific goal to cancel it, but that helps me to get in touch with the disassociated part, and then I'm doing it energetically, not necessarily with words.
Right.
Okay, so if I'm connected energetically to what's going on, then how do I move it further? Is that when healing crises come, or the confusion, or my favorites tend to be this confusion and disorientation and uncertainty and anxiety kind of stuff that comes up.
Right. And so that's where when I do the forgiveness process and I do all of the above, I get to move through those energies that are locked in on a tissue level that kind of keep my screen of awareness blanked with this emotional state that fuzzes my world. And the forgiveness process is about removing everything, not just from your own physiology, but from your genetics, that when certain circumstances come about, your world gets fuzzy. As Rex was talking about, for a day or two he was in such a daze, couldn't think properly, et cetera, et cetera. Those are the energies that create that fuzziness. And so when I come across a particular issue that, for instance, I haven't resolved in relationship, and that relationship situation stimulates those energies, there's my fog, there's my fuzziness. And that's what I want to breathe into, and that's what I want to apply every tool I've got to. So I might take the worksheet from the codependence workshop, fill it out in regard to that, and then look at the advice that I'm giving them and start to work with that from the perspective of the codependence worksheet. I might pick up the commitment and say, geez, I really need to, I'm getting all fuzzy and unconscious here. I'm going to go over to the mirror and I'm going to look myself straight in the eye and I'm going to read this commitment to myself. I'm going to promise to trust myself enough to treat myself lovingly, gently, and with respect, to be willing to speak and hear the truth. So, that can be a way to start to clear some of that stuff. Of course, the worksheet process. It might be time to lay down and breathe. It might be time to ask somebody to support you in doing a worksheet. There are many, many different tools, each one of them which we've practiced over this, the period that you've been here, that you want to take and apply to. How do I clean my mirror of this particular fuzziness, whatever it is?
Yes. I feel very eager to clean my mirror, and so that I have the support to really use the tools effectively when I end up out in that big world. So.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
And
know that you've absolutely got our support.
Okay. Okay. Well,
before the week is out, we'll be creating a space. I'm thinking about when to do that. We'll be creating a space to do some breathing too, so we'll get some more breath work in here.
Good.
Very soon.
Thank you. I'll let you get to your next caller. You only have 4 minutes left.
All right. Appreciate you. Blessings. Bye-bye. So, Jeanie, we have another caller.
Actually,
what's happening?
The other caller just dropped off. So, Mary Lou, I think last night at dinner you had a question that you said you were going to present.
Oh, well, my question was about you can't forgive what you can't access, and it was about, the drugs that I'm using to dissociate. And I know that for me, food is one of them, and I can notice that when I start looking for munchies, and I remember somebody reminding me that even healthy food, it can be a drug when I'm using it to move out of what I'm feeling and thinking, and just kind of with food on my brain with it, and all of it is about shifting into a deeper awareness that my fuzziness, the fuzziness that I get, it tends to be misspeaking words, and I think I'm talking about this, but it comes out backwards and in a different way than I'm intending. And so sometimes I just shut down because it's so, I find it so uncomfortable to have to clean up my words and clean up what I'm trying to say. It's just like, okay, I'm just going to sit down and shut up, and which is exactly the game of power people. It's that, okay, I'm going to stop, and now I'm doing it to myself. So that was what I wanted to ask about was, how do you forgive what you can't access, and how am I still using the
so we're down to about 40 seconds at this point. My input would be then some worksheets to do might be to be with yourself as the subject, and the goal that you'd be working through would be the goal to have perfect clarity. So I'd work with that one and see where that one gets you, because I can just this offhanded guess, and then we've got to close the show, but just this offhanded guess that all that your power person ever wanted from you was perfection and perfect clarity all the time, right?
Yep.
There you go. So tell me, share with us how that the results of those worksheets go, and in the meantime, we're going to just say, folks, we invite you to bring a stranger to the show with you tomorrow and create the best year yet of your eternal life. Blessings. Appreciate being with you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to MindShifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeanie, who present that internal Aramaic process of forgiveness. Michael and Jeanie are here every Monday through Friday on Earth Angels Radio. For more on Michael and Jeanie, please visit www.whyagain.com. That's www.whyagain.com.